Alright, our next lesson on rationals, we're going to look at adding and subtracting. So far we did simplifying and multiplying and dividing, where we wanted to get them factored. So you get your equations factored as much as you could. And so let's suppose we had these two fractions times each other. We would factor them as much as we could. Then we'd cancel our common factors, and that would be it. So with multiplying and dividing, it's just basically factor and cancel. So now what we're going to look at is adding and subtracting. And if we do adding and subtracting of fractions, remember if I gave you something like 1/3 plus 3/4, we have to change those fractions to have a common denominator. So then we'd multiply the first one by 4, the second one by 3, and then add them up. So once we have the common denominators, then we just simply add the tops, and that's it. So our simplified fraction is just 13/12. So the same thing is going to apply now with rationals, except our bottoms are going to likely have x's involved. So if you look at this example, both denominators are x plus 4, so they're already the same. So all we need to do is add or subtract the tops. So because we're subtracting, we've got to subtract the whole thing. So remember, the easiest way is to add the opposites. So we'd have 4x minus 1 plus negative 2x plus 9. And then we just add up all of our like terms. In this case, we'd have 2x plus 8. And then once we get it down to one fraction, we can kind of go back to what we did for multiplying and dividing. And we can look to see if there's any common factors. So if we take out a 2, we'd have x plus 4 on the top, x plus 4 on the bottom, which would cancel. So our final answer is just 2. And our non-permissibles will be just the bottom terms, which would be negative 4. Okay, so that's the kind of question we're going to do. We're going to start easier than that right now, but that's the method. So just like we do with fractions, first step is make common denominators. So we have to get those fractions to have equal denominators. After that, once your fractions are changed, we just simply add or subtract the tops. Be careful of the negative, right? Subtraction means negative, so you got to switch all of your signs. Add all your like terms together, and then simplify it and state your non-permissibles after that. So let's go through a few examples. We already did a simple one. So these first few we're going to look at are just the denominators already the same. So because our denominator is the same, we can just simply add the tops. So 3 plus 5 would be 8. 8 divided by 4 will reduce to 2. And that's it. So our second one, common denominator is b. That's already done. So we'd have 2a on top minus a minus 1. So be careful of that minus sign. So that'll be 2a minus a plus 1. So that would give us a plus 1 over b. And because we have b on the bottom, we would say non-permissive value of b will be 0. And our second one, we have x plus 4 on the bottom. Add our tops, 2x plus 8. So this is one's like our title page. We can now simplify it by taking out a 2, and we can see the x plus 4s would cancel, so we just get a 2, and x is not equal to negative 4. And our last one here, we have x minus 2 as our denominator, so we add all of our tops. We have x squared plus 3x minus 10, so it doesn't look like we can simplify this one, but we can try to factor the top. So we would have 5 and 2 to add up to 3, so 5 and negative 2. And you can see we have a minus 2 on the bottom, so those would cancel. So our final answer is just x plus 5 over 1, which we don't need to write. And our non-permissible would be 2 from the bottom term. And that's it. So you can see basic ones where the denominators are already the same. Just simply add or subtract the top and then try to simplify. So now when they're not the same, what we have to do is multiply each fraction to make them the same. So you can see in this case, we want our common denominator to be y squared. So that means we'd have to times the bottom by y. Whatever we do on the bottom, we've got to times the top. So this one we'd have 2xy on the top, and 3 on the second fraction, and that's it. There's no simplifying or anything like that. Our non-permissible would just be y can't be 0. And that's it for that one. Okay. Our second one, you can see our common denominator is going to be a squared b cubed. Okay, so if a squared b cubed is our common, so that second fraction is good. So we just need to times the first one by a and b squared. So we just need to do that on the top as well. So we have 2ab squared for the first fraction, and then subtracting a minus 1. So just be careful, go 2ab squared minus a plus 1, all over a squared b cubed. And our non-permissibles would be 0 for a and for b. And that's it. So the last one, you can see we got 2 and x plus 4, so that will be our common denominator. So the second fraction, we got the x plus 4, we're just missing the 2. So if we times our second fraction by 2 on the top, we'd have x plus 6. And that's it. That's all we can simplify. So our non-permissible is negative 4. So you can see with these ones, all we're doing is multiplying the top and bottom by whatever term is missing in order to get the denominators the same.
Number 5, 0 to 2.
Okay, so the last type now is what happens when our denominators are not the same and it's not just a simple multiplying to make them the same. So if you look at this first one, we see they look similar. So the trick to these ones is you want to factor everything if you can. So the first one is good. Our second fraction, if we factor the bottom, we'd have plus 2 and minus 2. So at this point, we can multiply by the first fraction by x minus 2, right? We got the plus 2 already. Or we can actually simplify first, which will actually make it easier. So in this case, because the fraction on the right, we can cancel those. We can always cancel within one fraction. We just can't cancel across the plus or minus sign this time. So that would be it. So that would be the easiest way to do this one. Just cancel those. So we'd have 1 over x plus 2. So now our denominators are the same. They are x plus 2. So we'd have x minus 3 plus 1, which would be x minus 2 over x plus 2. And our non-permissibles would be the 2 and minus 2 from the original factored form. Okay, that's not always going to work. So in this case, if the x minus 2 didn't cancel, so let's suppose on the top we had something like x minus 3 or something like that, then what we'd have to do is we'd look at our common denominator and we'd need an x minus 2 on the top and the bottom to simplify. So we'd have to FOIL out the top and then collect our like terms that way. So that's kind of what our next one's going to look like. So we won't bother doing it for that one. Let's save it for this next one. So the next one, we factor the bottom. We'd have y plus 1 and y minus 1. And you can see our second fraction already has the y plus 1. So all we're missing is the y minus 1. So we times that second fraction by y minus 1. So we should get 4 for the first fraction, 3y minus 3 for the second fraction, and we'd have plus 1 and minus 1 for our denominators. So all we can do is simplify the top. 4 minus 3 is 1, so we'd have 3y plus 1 over y plus 1, y minus 1, and our non-permissibles would be negative 1 and 1. Okay, so that'll be it for that one. So you can see basically with these ones, all we're doing is factoring and then doing common denominators. So the last one will be very similar. We got x minus 1 on top. Our factors on the bottom would be x plus 3 and x minus 2. And then we're subtracting on the bottom, we'll have x plus 3 and x plus 1. So you can see in this case now we're missing our common denominators actually going to be all 3 of our factors. We have plus 3, minus 2. The second one already has a plus 3, so we got that one, but we're missing the plus 1. So our first fraction, we got everything except for the x plus 1, so we need to multiply that one by x plus 1. And our second fraction, we've got everything but the x minus 2, so we have to multiply that one. So FOIL out the tops. So if we FOIL out x minus 1 times x, that gives us x squared. Then we'd have plus x, minus x, and minus 1. So that's our first one. Let's put that in brackets just to separate it. And then we're going to subtract our second one FOILed out. So that'll be x squared minus 2x minus 2x again, and plus 4. So now we're going to subtract those tops. So this is where it's, be careful with the minus sign. So let's make that plus. So we have minus, plus, plus, minus. So when we simplify all of that on the top, we have x squared minus x squared, which cancels. We have x minus x cancels. We got 2 plus 2, which would be 4x. and then we have -1 and -4, which would give us -5, and our bottom would stay the same, and we're finished. So that'll be our simplified equation, and our non-permissibles will be -3, 2, and -1. And that's it. So you can see with these harder ones, factor first, figure out your common denominator, multiply your tops by whichever denominator part is missing, and then just simplify. And that's all for this topic.